Hello and welcome to the Awaken Feminine podcast. I'm your host, KaKi Lee, a mindset coach and healer who's on a mission to share the love and wisdom of inspiring women from around the world who have gone through adversity and turned their pain into purpose. Today, I'm excited to share the love and wisdom of Sara Joanna, who is joining me all the way from Los Angeles and is an intuitive coach. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, I love you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
I got tongue-tied just then. I was like, yeah. And I usually call you Sara. So I'm going to call you Sara. I know like you introduce yourself as Sara Joanna for your coaching, but I'm going to call you Sara and confuse everyone by calling you Sara.
That's totally fine. I'm actually like in my Swedish name, it's actually Sara as well. So that's
Yeah.
totally
Yeah. And you're my soul sister. So I love you so much. I'm so excited to have you on. And I know we're going to have an awesome conversation. So, the first thing I usually ask my guests before we dive into their journey is I'd love you to share with us what is your definition of an awakened feminine?
Oh my gosh, I love this question. So, um, an awakened feminine, I really, when I think about it, like I feel like it really just comes down to like realizing and like waking up to the personal power that we all have within. Like really like I feel like I can complicate things so much, but at the end of the day it really comes back to like just like waking up from like a sleep,
Mm,
like waking up from like a sleeping beauty type of vibe, and like really like starting to unpeel and like discover and like rediscover and remember like truly that we have the power within to create whatever we want, and to be that like empowered woman, and
yeah.
that we don't have to hide behind being somebody else, or even the society that we live in, that it's safe for us to be who we are, like yeah.
Yeah. I love that definition. Full body tingles. So it's a beautiful, beautiful definition. Thank you so much for sharing that. So let's dive in. So I know you're an intuitive coach. So for people that don't know what that actually is, do you mind just giving a brief description of what an intuitive coach is?
Yeah, so how do I explain it? So really what I do, right, in a coach, really what I do, this is my personal
Yeah.
explanation of it, right? Because there's probably thousands of answers, right? And that's the beauty, of like really defining who you are and what you want to do, is that the way that I see an intuitive coach that I am is like I'm helping other women through my ability to feel into and see beyond people's, um, like uh, different layers and like different, like protection
Mm,
mechanisms,
yeah.
and then I help them then see and feel that as well. So it's like I work like a mirror almost,
Yeah.
then bouncing back like back and forth questions, and yeah, just working with them to have them feel the empowered, answers that they give.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful. Thank you for
a
that.
little explanation.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
I
yeah. And that sounds amazing. And I'm I use my intuition as well when we coach. I think most coaches do, but
totally.
this yeah, but yeah, definitely it's there's different levels and I know you are very tuned into other people's energies, which is really great when you coach. So yeah, it's awesome. So I'll love you to share your journey with us. So can you share with us what you were doing before you decided to jump into being, a intuitive coach? Like, what was your journey to get to where you are now?
Ah, boy.
Yeah,
How many
we only
times?
have 45 minutes, okay?
Exactly. No, so okay, so where do I start? Um so my journey, to where I am right now and like what I do right now, like actually working with people, helping them change their lives. Like that's what I do. And I I really feel like there is this like organic unfolding that has been happening in my life specifically. Um, there is this funny thing with like a purpose or like an awakening to your purpose. It's like it's almost like it has always been there as an option or as like little hints and little hits all throughout my like since like my early 20s, I would say.
Mm.
um you know, like I saw like Tony Robbins or whatever, or like also like some Swedish like a Swedish coach, and she had actually been in Los Angeles, and I went to her seminar and I bought her books, and there was like all these like about self-esteem and self-help. But for me it was always like I was on this endless search for like really like what was wrong with me. That was like the theme of my life. Like there's something missing, there's something wrong with me. I have to read all these books and I have to go all these places, and like felt really lost. And um it really just it got me to explore a lot of different fields or like a lot of different jobs. But I never felt like anything was for me. I wasn't like a traditional like I'm gonna go to school, I'm gonna get this degree. um, I never knew what I wanted, and like I never really went for what I thought I wanted. But I still had this part of me that like had this drive within me that I knew that I was meant to help people. That was like the common theme.
Mm.
So, like I moved to LA and I wanted to explore and experience all these things. Um, but it was never like a clear path. I even went to like get a certificate type of thing in health
Mm.
coaching when I was in my early 20s in
Yeah.
Sweden, which is really funny because I didn't do anything with it really. But then organically, as my life unfolded, I always struggled with my mental health. And so there was always in and out of like really like depressive periods of my life, and like
Mm.
a lot of anxiety and other mental health issues. And then um, what happened as I a couple of years, or actually 4 or 5 years ago, when I got pregnant with my son that is now 4, that's really where everything kind of cracked open, as
Mm.
we say. Like it really just everything, my entire life caught up to me, and
Yeah.
I had this huge awakening from like one moment to the next, where I was laying on the kitchen floor just crying out to like a god that I didn't believe in. Like it was just very like dramatic. Like now can I laugh about it, but like it really isn't fun. Like I was it was I got really deep like postpartum depression. I was in a country that, you know, it's difficult to become a mom, and everything kind of had to slow down naturally, obviously, when you get
Mm.
pregnant and you give birth. And I had the most amazing pregnancy. Having a beautiful husband, and like there was just this, the feeling never disappeared. Like that feeling of being empty that I thought that I could just like fix with
Mm.
getting something new to be excited about for a little bit. It was like a theme in my life that I had always like kind of like, okay, but when I get this, then I'll be happy. Or when I get that, like get to this place, then finally I'll be okay. But there was always this temporary feeling of like happiness, or there was never deep fulfillment. And
Mm.
so out of that, that's where I really like forced to really look at myself, because I couldn't run away anymore. I couldn't like go out partying anymore and like kind of numb myself. So like I
Yeah.
had to feel. I had to feel things, and I had to then take care of a baby and
Mhm.
learn how to be a mother, which is really funny, right? Because there is no way to be a mother. It's just being you and then do your best, right? But like, you know, as when you know too, when you're a mom, you're just like, oh, I have to do it this way because otherwise I'm not good. And like, yeah, so
Yes.
it was that huge identity crisis. And out of that, I started documenting like my personal like postpartum journey, like on YouTube. It was an idea that came, and I was like, I'm gonna talk about this because nobody's talking about this, like the real struggle of becoming a mom, like actually like the real and raw in the moment type of like discussion. So I posted a YouTube video, and I was just sitting with Leon, and like he was like 6 months old, and I was just talking to the camera about how I felt and all of the things that I was going through. And then little by little, other moms started to kind of comment and reach out, and then that became a little overwhelming because I hadn't yet helped myself. So there was again this like drive of like, I need to help other people. But I had to then force myself to like, okay, you know what? Like, I will never ever be able to help anyone else. I know kind of that's what I'm here for, to do, help so many people, but I cannot do it fully if I don't help myself first. So that's where I had to go offline completely, really get off all social media, all the information about how to be a mom and all of that, and then really go inwards. And so that's where I really like sought help, and I started to really transform my mental health through mindset, through looking at my beliefs and what I believed about myself, what I thought about myself, what I felt about myself, and that changed my life completely in a matter of like less than 2 months. I was a completely different person. And then everything opened up, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I cannot believe all the lies that I've been told. Like, there was just so much things about the mental health, that I learned and that I then integrated and transformed, that I was just baffled by all of the misinformation that I had heard other like in traditional, and this was not alternative at all. It was very science based and extremely scientific. So but still, it was my commitment, and I was at the point where I was like, enough is enough. So I was like, I'm gonna get help, and I did it. And then from there was just the passion within me was lit, and I was like, I'm gonna become a coach, and this is my purpose. My entire life made sense. It was like, this is it. I'm gonna do whatever it takes. And I felt so much fulfillment just from honestly, it started when I started to really talk about these hard things online, and I started to really open up about these things, and I started connecting with other women that felt the same way. That was the deeper fulfillment that started to really like root itself within me, because I was like, this is vulnerable topics to talk about, and nobody's talking about it. And I guess I'm just that person that is like talking about it. But then I had to also like weave in like really taking care of myself first. And so that's where everything came together. And then I hired a life coach, and she helped me a lot. And from there, I then was like, okay, I'm gonna build a business. And then I've just been like facing my fears one after another, and now I'm living in my purpose and really like making an impact and helping people for real.
And so, I love that. I mean, just from when I started knowing you to now, you've like grown is like, whew. And it's just beautiful to see like you really stepping into your purpose and your power and believing in yourself. So it just makes me so happy, because I just love it when I see other women, especially my, soul sisters and my girlfriends, do that. Is so empowering, and it just allows other women to do the same, because once you see one woman do it, another woman will be like, oh, I can do it. It's like a permission slip, right? And then just think like it's just going to explode, and all the women will rise up and step into their power, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And that's really what drove me, because I was like, I thought I couldn't do this. I was like, something is wrong with me. They can do it. And I saw all these people. I was scrolling online and I was like, I knew the feeling that I wanted to create in my life, and I knew the lifestyle that I wanted to have, and like that deeper sense of like, I'm making a difference in this world. I couldn't have a regular job. It's just not me, and then when I saw somebody do it, I still came back to this negative voice in my head that said like, I can't do this. Like, they have something that I don't have. All of these things, right? But that's really what a coach
Mm,
helps figuring out. It helps really build belief, because we always hear, well, you have to just believe in yourself,
yeah.
right? When we're gonna like go after our dreams and like follow our passion, and build a life that we want, that we truly truly desire, and but nobody tells you how to do that. And so
Mm,
that's what a mindset coach helps doing. And that's why I'm so passionate about doing that for my clients, because it's like, well, just believe in yourself isn't enough. Like, how do you actually bridge the gap from not believing in yourself at all
yeah.
to then step by step actually like building something and see and feel the difference?
Yeah, and getting rid of all the stories that and excuses we like to tell ourselves. Like
Yeah,
as you saying before, I'm not good enough, I can't do that. Well, you can. Anyone
yeah,
can do whatever they want. They just need to actually believe and actually take the action to do it
yeah.
because, no one just learned to play the piano like from birth. People can't play. You have to learn, right? So you can do it. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of how much do you want it as well.
Yes, and it's also interesting. I love that you touch on that, because it's like, I had this idea also. I think that, and this is what I see in a lot of people and a lot of women that I speak to as well, is that, and that was me, and that keeps being me too as I reach new levels, right? Is
Mm,
the same things are coming up, but
yeah,
then it's like, well, it's not that you are unable. It's like, you're telling yourself that you're unable, so then everything flows from there, because it's like, it's your thoughts and your feelings that creates your action.
yeah,
And so depending on what's going up in here and what's going on in here in your heart and your body, that's the two different roads that you take. If you take like a road towards like what you're fearing and then overcoming that, that's what builds confidence. Where we think that confidence is just something somebody has, but no, you can actually build it,
yeah.
and it's fully possible.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And I want to talk about, you were talking about vulnerability, and I really do believe that being vulnerable is a power in itself because, like you were saying, no one was talking about the postpartum depression and how you feel after being a mum. And
Mm.
for me, I know we both have very similar stories. It was like, I have this baby, like, what do I do with it? I have this person telling me that I should be breastfeeding all the time, but I don't have enough breast milk. So, am I a bad mum if I don't breastfeed and give them formula? Is like all these things, all these shoulds, people come, you get all this information, and then obviously you start Googling because you're not sleeping.
Don't even
And
start
that's the worst
about
thing to do. That makes you different. Probably even if you didn't have postpartum, it will make you get postpartum depression.
Totally. Oh yeah, 100%. I really do believe that. That's a valid point. That's We're laughing, but it's actually, I believe now, with everything I know about what actually goes on in people's minds,
Mm,
and how we create our reality, right? Like based on our internal state, like totally let that, if we didn't have all the information sources, like information is great, but sometimes we need to stop and just look inward, because we do know what
yeah,
to do.
yeah. And every baby's different, so you just can't have one person telling you that this is how they raise their child, but your child is completely different child to their child, so it doesn't quite work that way, right? So I just love that you were okay, I'm just share my perspective, and that's the thing is this being able to be vulnerable is starting conversations, right?
Yeah.
And when you start conversations, you can bring in different perspectives rather than always having this tunnel vision of this one view that majority of people have, but there are other, other perspectives and other ways of doing things. And the same with you when you talked about the mental health things that you've learned, right?
Yeah.
I'll really love you to, if you don't mind, kind of maybe just give us an example of, because you were saying that, the traditional way versus this other way that you've now learned. And just maybe like example of a difference of what, if you go into a traditional like method of healing your mental health, what you do and something that you can do instead, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, well, basically, this is just my story, right? Like
Yeah,
my
of course.
perspective, but I do know as well, obviously, because as I help myself and like through these methods and this type of perspective, then I also see other people that have been helped as well, right?
Mm,
Um, so well, so when I say traditional, I just meant like when it comes to anxiety, for example, like we like it's this we already know that there has been stigma around mental health for so long, right? Like around like struggling with your mental health.
yeah.
And there is obviously a stigma. There's so much stigma, right? But it has become better and better and more accepted and things
Mm,
like that to actually be human, because that's at the end of the day what it comes down to, right?
yeah.
But like anxiety disorders and like very debilitating mental health struggles, like I struggle a lot with like social anxiety, and that just skyrocketed when I had a baby, because I mean I couldn't even go out to the
Mm,
store because I was just like, I can't do this. um so what I mean is like there is, and this could go in a whole discussion about like medication and all of
yeah.
that. I have been on medication like before in my life for for mental health. And I've been doing all of the things to
Mm,
try to help my situation, let me just be clear.
mm,
But it wasn't until I actually like did this program that I first invested in, when I started investing in myself and my own transformations, that I fully understood myself.
mm,
And it comes down to like understanding ourselves and how we're made up, and like what is actually like what actually is anxiety, and how that the fact, the biggest aha moment and the mind-blowing like situation came out of really understanding, studying. We study all different things, right? We study how everything works in the world, but
mm,
like we don't study ourselves, and we don't understand that actually it is our thoughts that create. We are so powerful that we get to create our own anxiety. Like, and there are layers, right? But that's the gist of it. Like that was really the gist of it, and the biggest aha moment that I got. And I was like, hold on. If I have created all of the results in my life up until this point right now,
yeah.
meaning I created that scenario, I created that feeling, I created the reality through the way I saw myself in a skewed way, meaning I didn't see my value. I wasn't very kind to myself.
Mm,
And this is all subconscious, right? Like there are 95% like subconscious thoughts
yeah.
and beliefs that are running the show like a computer all of the time. And so that's why sometimes you can start to really want to create a change in your life, and you want to create a certain result, but it's your computer programming that is running the show.
Mm,
So that's where you really have to like start breaking down
yeah.
those programs and realize that actually my self-esteem was one programming, and then my social anxiety was a programming, and then my depression was a programming too. Now, that's not to say that it wasn't hormonal and things like that. This wasn't particularly around my postpartum depression that I did this program. I mean,
Yeah.
this thing. So of course it is like individual, right? But it was just this idea that I was actually creating it and then putting into practice and really experimenting with those things and
Yeah.
really see and feel and integrate that in my body, that I was like, oh my gosh, if I created all of that mess, then how about I can turn it into my advantage and then start creating it the way I want it? If I am so sensitive to my emotions and my feelings, why not use it to my advantage? I just haven't learned how to. And then that opened up to a whole new world, because then I started to really lean into like, oh my gosh, I'm creating anxiety right now. Instead of saying, I have anxiety, I'm just an anxious person. Like, no, I'm creating anxiety right now because I have been thinking this way, and these things are on my mind. Okay, let me just reel myself back in and then look at, okay, what else can I think right now that is making me feel a different way? So
Yeah. I
yeah.
love that. It's kind of like, I guess, if for people that don't, there's people that are always skeptical about things that are not, the science, right? The normal science. And it's
Mhm.
like, it's kind of like distracting yourself, when you want to do something and then you're just like so into it, and then you distract yourself with something else, so then you go and do something else. It's basically that your mind is actually, you've got like a pretty monkey brain. It gets distracted easily. So if you're able to change the way you think, then your mind will be like, oh, okay. And it's continuing to remind your brain, because it will go back to the way you're thinking before if you don't keep distracting it with the new thoughts.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been starting to play around with the idea that, because what I see, in the women that I work with, but also in myself, is that I feel like a lot of the times, like, we have like almost like an emotional default
Mm,
like situation, and
yeah.
like maybe somebody's default is like anxious, right? But then there's another person where her or his default might not be anxious. Like, they may rarely experience anxiety, but maybe their default is like anger,
Mm,
so like, it's okay, like, yeah, it's
yeah.
it's totally like us creating it, but it's very hidden, so we have to start really like making a commitment. And it isn't until we make a commitment that like enough is enough and we want to create change, that we actually get to do this work, because
Yeah.
it's not a magic pill. It's not. And that's the difference, right? It's a mindset shift in itself
Yeah.
to actually say, yes, I want to create, because it takes work, right?
Mm,
It's fun work, because you get to study yourself and you
yeah.
get to unravel all the misconceptions about who you think you are.
Yeah.
But it
And
takes commitment for sure.
yeah, definitely. I love that. And, it is, I think, until the person is ready to really look at themselves, most of the time people prefer to turn a blind eye as to who they really are.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And it's also like a skewed perception of like our power, right? Like our light and our value, that sometimes we have just like put on the back burner completely, and then we walk around thinking that we have to be these other this other person that we don't have any business being that other person. Why would we even like bother trying to be somebody that we're not? But that's also a journey to figure out who we are,
Yeah.
to really like decide, okay, well, wait, I get to be someone that I want to be.
Mm,
And then how do I go about creating that person? It's actually possible.
yeah.
Like, I always say like, the story about ourselves that like, well, I'm just not that kind of person.
Yeah.
And like, I'm just not that person. I'm just not, you know, that confident person. But sure, that's because you haven't saw yourself. You haven't seen yourself as a confident person. But like, you can start building belief in the new truth that you are becoming a confident person.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you keep telling yourself you're not a confident person, you're actually programming yourself to not be a confident person as well, right?
And
And
your brain will believe what you're telling it. So
yeah,
it's like really working with like, well, that goes into like the strategy on like how to do these things, but like
yeah,
really like the brain loves what's familiar.
mm,
So the only job for a brain is to keep you safe. That's literally its job. It's not meant to evolve with
yeah,
us.
yeah. Is like going to shock, going, "What are you doing? I'm quite happy being in my comfort zone," and it goes into shock, and it's then like working past that,
Mhm.
past your brain, so that you can actually start working on yourself.
Yeah, and it's really about like befriending all of those like little voices, and also like befriending your brain and be like, you know what, like I'm actually the boss of you. Like I'm like, it's so funny because I used to say like make your brain your bitch, because
Yeah,
it's like it really is like, hold on, like don't believe your brain here. We've
yeah,
been taught to like believe what you think and da da da, but we have to see the individual person
yeah,
and what that person is actually like thinking about first, before we say things like that, right?
yeah,
That's why sometimes quotes and things like that are floating around, like don't just take it as like the truth, because you have to look at where a person is.
mm,
And it's so important to like keep things apart from like, okay, where you where this person is starting, and where this person is starting when that awareness is caught up to them.
yeah.
It's like you have to individualize and meet people where they're at and start really working from that place.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Loving our conversation so far. I would really love for you to share more love and wisdom with us. So, Zara, you talked about your journey, and I want to ask, is there a particular, I mean, I know you went through postpartum depression, but was there a particular experience that you went through that you found the most challenging but led to your biggest breakthrough? And what did you get from that breakthrough?
Oh my gosh, I think so many. uh okay, let me think. I think like looking back, it like where I'm at right now, looking back over my life, I feel like I have had this part of me that always have like broken through things. And like I always moved towards fear. I always moved towards fear, but I the part the thing that I didn't do was to actually give myself credit enough
Mm,
for being that brave person. And so that's just a shift in itself. But one particularly hard experience of my life, um, that really like broke me like down, was being like really falling in love with somebody, and like it was a very toxic relationship
mm,
and extremely abusive environment.
mm,
And that's something that I first of all, it humbled me to go through that and to leave that and to go back in there and to leave again and to go back in there and leave again, right? And then to finally like it really got really bad, and then I had to like leave, right? And I think that that's just something that that gave me a lot of understanding and compassion for, I want to say women because that's the only perspective I have, right? But like
yeah.
women who I used to say and judge, right? Like, oh, well, one thing that I will never do is to put myself in that type of situation, or like, oh, why does she
Mm,
stay? And those statements and like really interesting judgments that have come out of my mouth before, I
Yeah.
found myself completely sucked in, drained, and completely broken down from being in that situation myself. And and that took me a long time to really truly like heal from.
Yeah.
And there's, that's a baggage that you then like that becomes your perspective.
Yeah.
And that's,
Yeah.
so yeah, that was a very difficult experience that have led to obviously appreciating so much of what I have today.
Mm. Thanks for sharing that. And what I love about your share, I mean, it wasn't a great uh, experience for you, but you learned a lot about yourself and how to
Yeah,
overcome these challenges. But I love what you said about the judgment,
yeah,
about how before you're like, why would you do that? But when you're in the situation, you can't see the forest from the trees, right? You're just in this situation and you just can't see outside the box.
totally.
And it's really funny when before you're like, out from the outsider's point of view it's so clear, but when you're inside it's you just blind pretty much, aren't you?
Completely, absolutely. I mean, obviously this was years ago,
Mm,
and it's interesting because I think that just being human and like experience like just getting a slap in the face, like the universe, God, source, whatever your wording is, right?
yeah.
But we all know that's the energy of like the bigger picture here,
Yeah.
that it's like uh like, okay, let me teach you one or two things here, so that you can really understand, like, and it's coming out of love, but it's like, now I don't think that that was like coming from a place of like wanting to punish me for anything, because I don't
Mm,
believe that. Even though I went through my own type of
mm,
awakening, like spiritual journey of like thinking that like things happen because had done bad things or whatever, right? But like I've moved past that at this point. But like, yeah, I really do believe that judgment is something that I mean, it's just that it's just something that we all do. And I think that it really is like, as we mature and as we growing wisdom and experiences, and dare to actually look at how we treat other people,
mm,
not only out in the world but in here, because that's really what creates a lot of like damage,
mm,
toxicity, like really.
yeah.
But we have to be able to look at it, okay, and be compassionate about ourselves with the actual honest thoughts that we are thinking, because until we can be completely honest without judgment, then we will not be able to change
Yeah.
those thoughts and those beliefs. And since the thoughts and beliefs are creating our feelings, and our feelings create our actions, and our actions create our results in life, then there are just no way we can change, right?
Yeah.
And we were looking at the world, like, it's like, okay, well, I do understand why things are happening the way that they are, because people are not looking honestly
Yeah.
in the mirror. So
Yeah. Yeah, people are not looking honestly. I mean, right now is also there's lack of compassion for the different points of views. Is like
yeah,
you either have this point of view or you are like, you're an outsider,
yep.
and it's having being able to see different points of views and then taking going, okay, I align with that. I get what they're saying, but I don't align with that. Or, oh, I align with this, even though before I didn't see that point of view.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And it's also like, I think it's so interesting because as you change, it's so fun to look back at what you used to believe and what you
Yeah.
used to hold on to, like a little, like,
Yeah.
like there's an analogy that is, it's like you're a monkey holding on to the banana, but but there's like ton of bananas on the same, like you can just take another banana. But like, anyways, there's this like I used to be so black and white in my thinking, and I still catch myself, but it's not the problem. The problem isn't that we have certain ideas and thoughts, right, about how things should be. The problem is that we're not open to see things differently.
Yeah.
It's okay that we have been taught unconsciously, sometimes generational, right, in all different areas of our life and topics, money, love, sex, like, you know, business and society and jobs, right, like motherhood, like everything, right, like it's not a problem. That's just how things go. If we don't choose to be willing to like question those things, right? And so
Yeah.
I just think that, yeah, I think that, you know, the power and the empowerment really lies in like being vulnerable and open enough to question what we know, and what we think we know is not necessarily the truth, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love this.
Me too.
So, Zara, you've been through quite a lot, I know that. So when you do get into the deeper, darker places and you're like, I need to get out of here, what are some of the tools or teachers that have been really helpful in, bringing you back up or your healing and your healing?
Yeah, so I would say I don't, you know, because I had struggled so much with like really going deep and really going to a dark place, like during so many years of my life. Not consistently, it was never consistently, it was just up and down, up and down, up and down. And when it was up, it was really up, and then when it was down, it was like down and out. And so I didn't have the tools back then. So that was the issue, right? Like I just let it spiral down. So now, first of all, the best or the most foundational, transformative, uh, like turning point was really looking at all those beliefs and really rebuilding the foundation. Like really look at all the beliefs and all of the ideas and perspectives that I had about myself. And that was during that program that I started to invest in. And that really transformed me in such a deep level that I wasn't the same after that. And since that, I haven't struggled with any of the deep dark stuff. Now it's more of like, I would say the really powerful tools is to always be aware of how I feel, is to be connected to my body, is to be sensitive to my emotions, and is to allow those emotions to rise up and to not resist them. And that's I mean, that's really just the best tool, is to really be sensitive to that inner guidance. And that requires a mindset shift that emotions aren't bad. Because a lot of the suffering, I would say, and this is my opinion and my perspective, that probably 99% of the suffering when it comes to mental health comes down to resisting emotion and feeling out of control with it, and think that it's gonna we're resisting the emotion of things, right? Because we think that we can't handle them, but we can. We just haven't practiced it enough. So it's about starting to practice being aware of how we feel to like any given moment. And really breath work has been amazing too, as I deepening my journey and deepening my own embodiment of like new identities and new levels. Like breath work is amazing to be acquainted with feeling safe in your body. And so that's really helpful. Only just taking 3 deep breaths and hold your hand on your heart, it can just really shift you into a different state. Then other tools, Yeah, I would say just really not resisting. I think that's just I don't think that's a tool, but it's just awareness of like it's it's okay to feel your feelings, but not you don't have to stay down there.
Yeah, yeah,
um it was that was my default, right? Like it's some people's default to stay down there, and there's some people's default is to stay up there all the time and not feel any of those
yeah,
things. So yeah, it's just be aware of how you feel and prioritize that how you feel.
yeah. Exactly. Love those. Thank you for those wonderful tips. And Zara, I know you love reading, so can you share with us a particular book or even maybe a few books that have really made a big impact on your life?
Oh my gosh. Let me see. Let me see what has really well, Asking It Is Given is like my number one.
Yeah,
Um by Abraham Hicks or Esther Hicks. Um yeah, that's life changing.
yeah,
That book is life changing. What else? Um Actually, one book that it was like completely changed my mindset around societal like beliefs about success and money
mm-hmm.
was Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Oh yes.
That one is yeah, that one is definitely one for the books. One for the book for the books. um what else? I haven't read like, oh, what am I reading right now? Oh, right now I'm reading The Big Leap.
Yeah, haven't heard that one.
That's about fear.
Mm.
Really, really good book about fear. Um, yeah,
Oh,
there's
yeah,
many, but those
yeah,
three are the ones that come to mind right now that has left a big impact in my journey.
awesome. Thanks for sharing those with us.
And
Um,
anything by sorry, anything by Joe Dispenza
yes,
as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
love Joe Dispenza. He's
Yes.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like science and spirituality. Like,
Yes. That's my passion.
oh,
Oh
yeah,
my god, I get lit up by talking about it.
yeah, love it. So, Zara, if you were able to time travel and go back to a younger version of yourself, what advice or what would you actually might not be advice, but what would you like to tell yourself?
Oh my god. So much. The number one thing that I feel like has been the most in my way that I would love to tell her is do not like like you don't have to like people don't have to like you, like that is not the mission of your life. Like you know like
Why?
you
Why isn't that the mission?
like your role here is not to please other people and to do what other people want you to do. I always had a side of me that was like that, and I always had a side that wasn't, right? But it's like leaning into the side of like it's okay to go after what you want, and also don't obsess about things that you cannot control,
Mm,
meaning other people, events, things like that, that
yeah,
is out of your experience, like out of your control.
yeah. Beautiful pieces of advice for your younger self and also for yourself now as well, like for any
Yeah,
age really, but definitely
totally.
would be really good advice for when we were younger.
Mhm.
So, I want to ask you, I know there are men and women listening right now who are wanting to make changes in their life, whether it's a career, their relationships, their health, anything, where they're feeling stuck or lost, or they're just too scared to even take that step. What advice or recommendations would you have for them so that they can actually start? It's not even like get to where they want to be, but to actually just get started to change.
Oh, that's such a good question. If well, if they're at the place, if you're at the place where you really have like acknowledged that you want something different and that you want to create change, then I would say just leaning in and be open to, like, say yes to opportunities that, like, the opportunities that show up from you setting that intention, and not, like, really listening to your intuition when it comes to, like, taking that scary leap of, like, maybe invest in a coach. That's honestly what I would say. Like, I would
Yeah.
really say that I waited 2 years before I, like, actually invested in a coach. And I would say totally just, like, do it,
Yeah.
and really be, like, adamant about, like, what you want. Like, be clear on what you want, and don't listen too much to the, like, the voice will come there. Like, the voice will always come as you decide something that you want, and you decide to follow your desires. That's the voice of fear that will kick in, and just really allow that to be there, but not allow it to stop you, because you can do whatever you want. Like, you can go after the dream you want, the qualities in a man that you want. Like, you really can do whatever you want. It's just a matter of, like, you leaning in, and creating that courage in yourself to really, like, jump before you're ready, and not waiting until you're ready. Like, you
Yeah.
will never be ready.
Yeah. I know. Never. It's like having a baby. You're never
Yeah,
ready.
exactly. So, like, I feel like that's just a theme, at least in my life. Is like, I've always just, like, resisted things that I want, but then I have, like, created it by, like, just jumping and, like, falling, and then figure things out. Like, while I'm
Mm.
jumping out of the airplane, I will figure out if I have a parachute or not. And it's like, that was very stressful for a long time to live like that, and I still live like that a little bit. It's just who I am. But, like, I wouldn't trade it for the world, because I've done so much fun things, and, like, experienced so much different emotions. And that's really my philosophy, is like, we're here to experience feelings, and, like, experience life fully, and not wake up at the end of your life thinking, oh my gosh, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I, like, that's like the number one regret from old people that are
Yeah.
on their deathbed. And they say, like, the one thing that I regret is, like, why didn't I follow my heart, or why didn't I do that thing that I want to do?
Yeah.
And that's something that drives me every single day, just thinking about that.
Yeah. Don't want to have to live a life of regret and think,
Yeah.
what if, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But what if, in another sense, right? Like, what if it
Mm.
works, right?
Exactly.
What if you actually can be happy, right? Like, you can, like, there you can create life your way. And that's really what I'm so passionate about, just helping people create life their way. Like, there's no rules.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why we're soul sisters, because we just want to just help as many people create the lives that they want, because
I
it's
know.
possible. It is possible. You just have to believe. Yeah.
Yes, it's the journey there that makes it so fun, because there
Yeah.
will always be another destination.
Yeah.
There will always be another thing that you want along the way, right?
Yeah.
But when you can feel fulfillment and gratitude and happiness, those things are feelings. Those things are emotions. Those are available to you. Because
Yeah.
guess what? Once you get to that milestone, and once you get to that destination, you will feel the temporary high of it, but you will not, like, sustain it unless you find it right now. So
Yeah.
that's really, really key.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. So, Zara, I'm going to take a little bit of a turn and talk about self-love, because for me, that was one of my biggest lessons to learn. So, as an awakened feminine, what does self-love mean to you?
Uh, oh my gosh, the topic of self-love is so huge, and it's so just scratching the surface,
Yeah.
right? It always is ever living and ever evolving. So I love that. Self-love to me, I mean, honestly, it's just really acceptance. Like, acceptance over and over and over again. Uh,
Yeah.
acceptance of like our light more so than anything. I feel like that's something that I see over and over again. But also acceptance, of course, of our like flaws and like
Mm.
shortcomings or whatever you want to call it. But like there's also power in our words, right? And the labels that we put on things. So really like self-love is really just awareness too. I feel like just awareness and 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 knowing that that anything that you want you're worthy of, like you're worthy of having everything that you want. And at the same time, like yeah, really loving yourself where you're at, like
Yeah.
building that love. And sometimes that just takes a decision, because we can work on self-love all our life, right? Like
Yeah.
this is an ever unfolding journey, and it's not a destination. You cannot say like, okay, like this, like I'm on the journey to self-love. Like no, 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 because then you will never, like you're missing out,
Yeah.
like you no, like the somebody said, and I love this saying. Somebody said, ready is not a feeling, it's a decision.
Yeah.
And I feel like with self-love it's a little bit the same, right? It's like you get to decide that you love yourself,
Mm.
and then you get to really work backwards to really see the evidence of that. And that's what I help also like myself and clients do, is
Yeah.
like we don't need to make it out as this big destination or this big mountain that we need to climb, because it's all here. It's just about like remembering
Yeah.
that you don't have to do anything or be anything to love yourself. Like that's just a given, like it's like Marissa Peer says this. She says this, that when babies are born, they're not asking, like they're not afraid to ask, like
Yeah.
they're not afraid to ask for what they want. They scream when they're hungry, they poop when they need to poop, like
Yeah.
like they don't, like they just know their worthiness already.
Yeah.
Like it's just inevitable, it's just there. And so we just need to remember that. And yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. I'm losing my voice. But yeah, it's really about coming back to yourself, coming back to your true essence, to know that you deserve, what you want, and to accept yourself as who you are. I love that. That's such a beautiful meaning for, for
Yeah,
self-love. Yeah.
of course, like it's just to add that too, is that sometimes it can even like talking about these things is like it sounds really fluffy, right? And it sounds
Mm.
really like intentional, like just accept yourself. And this, it's almost like these like spiritual concepts or whatever, but like it's okay to break it down and to really really start to like ask the questions
Mm.
about who you are and being honest. Like just being honest about like, I don't feel like I love myself is progress. Like I always say to my clients when they start, it's like, well, how is you being here actually evidence that you do love yourself at least a little bit? Like
Yeah.
showing up and even like doing anything like this
Yeah.
is self-love. Listening to this is self-love. So if you're
Yeah.
listening right now, like this is self-love for you.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And so, Zara, then what are your top three go-to activities to make sure you give yourself the self-love you deserve?
Ooh. You know it's self-love to me top three things,
Oops.
really just to take a moment. I love taking baths. I love taking baths. So that's like a big self love to me. And I've been starting to do more of like a goddess bath ritual, where it's not just a shower or bath
Yeah.
to get clean. It's really, really just the whole experience of having all of the things, like
Yeah.
a glass of champagne, or like really being intentional about it and like making a full body experience.
Nice.
dancing to me is a lot of self-love. Any energetic like practice is like really just self-love to me. But also like allowing myself to just be saying yes to things that I want to do
Mm-hmm.
because it's that's also an act of self-love that is like more like, yeah, like that's an act, like that's an activity, but it's like if an opportunity comes my way, to not say no out of fear, which I have done a lot, right? Because I have had this like really deep like fear of being seen and heard, and which is funny because when you have a business and you help women all over the world and you want to do these big impacts, like you have to allow yourself to be seen and to be heard and take these opportunities. So
Yeah.
that's an act of self-love, so whatever those opportunities are.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for that. Love those activities. And Zara, so before we wrap up, I'd really love you to share with us what is setting your soul on fire right now.
Oh, conversations like these, um, conversations like these sets my soul on fire. Like they really do. My my business, my my soul business that I'm building right now, that sets my soul on fire. Like the fact that that I'm creating the life that I always dreamt of, like I'm creating that and I will continue to create that as new things come up that I want to do and that I want to feel and that I want to experience. The fact that I have found the keys to like the universe, like I
Yeah,
don't know, that sets my soul on fire. The fact that I get to create my own reality and that I get to design it not out of default anymore, that really, that sets my soul on fire, that I get to help other people do that too, and
yeah.
that I get to like re-give that gift.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. I just see your beautiful smiling face and the energy. You're just so excited about helping people. And I know, like, our
I know.
conversation, I've just loved our conversation today. So, yes, thank you. So, thank you so much for sharing your love and wisdom with us today. If people want to find out more about you and how they can work with you, where should they go?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I have an Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram. It's Sara Joanna G. No H. So just Sara, Sara Joanna G. And then I have a Facebook group. You're more than welcome to join my Facebook group. It's the Soul Shine Society on Facebook. And it's for women who know that they're meant for more, who really resonate with my message. Like, please come in there and hang out with other ambitious women that want to build belief in themselves. And Yeah, I'm also on Clubhouse now. I'm obsessed with Clubhouse. So I'm gonna be doing a lot of things in there. It's a voice platform. So yeah, I'm Sara Joanna there as well.
Awesome. I'll have all your details and any recommended resources available in the show notes so people can reach out to you. Thank you once again, beautiful.
You're so welcome. I'm so excited. Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and I love you so
I
much.
love you too. Mwah.
Ah.
And until next time, I love you, I believe in you, and you're worth taking that first step to the life of your dreams.